Kevin Percilli. I'm the executive for Miami YPN. And thank you so much for attending today's class. It is all about retirement, how much you need for retirement, all about getting to the ever so elusive financial freedom. And today we have Mills Bender on the line, but before we get to Mills, the sponsor for today is YPN Global. I need everybody to do something right now. If you're not following YPN.global on Instagram, go ahead, take out your phone, type in the search bar, YPN.global, and we will be keeping you abreast of all the global events and all the global initiatives that we will be doing with Miami Realtors. I'm very proud to say that we have a huge event coming up in February. It is going to be in Dubai. You are going to join global realtors from all over the world and Miami Realtors in Dubai for the very first YPN Global Conference. It is going to be a great pleasure. We're going to be giving out 3 awards for YPN Leader of the Year, Most Creative YPN Influencer, and Most Creative YPN Group of the Year. So there's 3 awards. We want you to apply. We want to see somebody from Miami take home this award. You'll be competing with global realtors throughout all of the world, and I hope Miami is able to take home one of those awards. What I will do is I will post a link in the chat telling you how to get in contact with not only the hotel reservations, but the actual conference reservations as well. It's going to be a great time. It is also in conjunction with the International Property Show. I went there last year. I could say myself, there's a lot of amazing professionals that are in that room and in that space. And it's a great way to see what other opportunity investments are available. And if you ever want to know, what is going on in Dubai, or if one of your clients wants to know, what can I invest in Dubai? This International Property Show will give you all of the information you need, as well as some of the best investment opportunities, not only in Dubai, but abroad and across the world. So with that, thank you for everybody who followed YPN.global on Instagram. If you haven't done that, please don't forget to do so. But it is 1:03, and we will be respectful of your time. And so with no further ado, I'm going to stop sharing my screen right now. And Mills, you might want to take that over here in a second. Mills, thank you so much for hosting this class with us. Please tell us how we can get to financial freedom.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited for the conversation today. For those of you who don't know me very well, I like to take a very casual, interactive approach, right? I'm not going to talk down to anybody. I simply want to provide the information that's necessary to help you reach your version of financial freedom. So with that said, can everybody see the PowerPoint? Kevin, can you give me a thumbs up if you can see it? Perfect. Okay, good stuff. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about how to reach retirement with your variable income. And as I mentioned earlier, some of you may know me, some of you may not. This is really a great step 2 conversation from what I talked about a few months ago with Miami Association of Realtors. The first presentation I provided was how to master your money without stress, anxiety, or fear. And as we talked about in that presentation, there are really 3 main categories that mastering your money falls within. It's no longer living paycheck to paycheck, being able to pay off debt twice as fast, and the ability to reach your financial goals. And when we were having the conversation on financial goals, there was an overwhelming response from the realtors who attended live that wanted to know more about retirement. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. If you missed the first presentation, I'll email you all the link, but for now, this is what we can talk about in this moment. I'm going to give you a little bit of a brief overview of who I am, what Mills Knows Bills is, and what we do. We're going to talk about your financial independence number and what that translates to in terms of monthly contributions. Of course, I don't just like giving you something to solve. I also like to give you the solution on how to solve that. So we're going to talk about how those monthly contributions actually play a part in your everyday sales being a realtor. And then lastly, we're going to talk about where to invest the money that you want to set aside for retirement. And I'm going to give you some easy next steps to implement today as well. So let's go ahead and dive right on in. My name is Mills Bender. I'm the founder and owner of Mills Knows Bills. We're a team of financial coaches who help variable income earners master their money in our 90-day coaching program. We like to take a really easy, tailored approach with our clients, so that way they can use us and lose us, right? Our goal is not to work with you forever. We want to educate you and empower you through that education, so that way you can move forward with your finances. We do help our clients with making sure that they aren't living paycheck to paycheck. They can pay off their debt and they are on track to reach their financial goals. And the reason why this is so near and dear to my heart is because 8 years ago, I was that person. I had $1.50 in my bank account. I had no idea how I got there, but worse yet, I had no idea how to fix it moving forward. And at that time, I was paralyzed with overwhelm and fear. And I hated that feeling. So I wanted to make sure nobody else had that feeling either. After a nice long journey, and if you're interested in learning more about that story, I'm happy to connect with you one-on-one on that. I got to the point where I figured out what I wish I would have known 8 years ago. And I created a business where I help other people with that as well. As we mentioned, retirement is actually one of those big factors. Whether you're a fixed income earner or variable income earner, there are so many individuals that I talk with who have no idea what they want for retirement. And oftentimes they just keep pushing off getting it started, really. Oh, I'm only this age. I have plenty of more time to get there. And that's true. We do have plenty of time. However, the sooner you get started, the less it's going to cost you to get to your destination. So as I said, I want some interaction today. I'd love to know from everybody in here. Go ahead, open the chat. How much money do you think you want or need for retirement? I'll give everybody a couple seconds to post their response in the chat there. $1 million, 1.5 million, 1 million. Okay. Anybody else have any numbers? 3 million. I like it. Now, for those of you who are responding, I'm curious, how did you arrive to that number? Is it just a gut feeling? Have you actually calculated that and figured out what that looks like? And there's no wrong response here. Calculated your expenses monthly. Good, Nadia. Based on the 4% withdrawal rule. Good, Maria. So some of you have done a little bit of the information that we're going to be talking about today. I'm actually going to give you a little bit more to add to that. 1.5, just a guess. Thank you for your honesty, Marisol. And it's true. I can't tell you how many people that I've sat down with who have said, oh, I want $500,000. That should be enough. When in reality, we need to make sure that we are choosing a number that is based off of our personal finances, our goals, and our expectations for retirement. And so that's what we're actually going to get started with in this conversation. In order to calculate what you need for retirement, you need to understand one thing. Retirement is not an age. It's a dollar amount. Okay? And that dollar amount is called your financial independence number, or when you can quite literally become financially independent from working. Gustavo, that's a really good approach too. The reason why I say it's a dollar amount and not an age is because of that 4% withdrawal rule that Maria alluded to in the chat. There's this idea that if you have $1 million set aside, that's the equivalent of living off of $40,000 a year for the rest of your life. So if you know you can live off of $40K a year, whether you retire today, or whether you have that $1 million today or 30 years from now, you will never run out of that $1 million if you keep your withdrawal within 4% of your total portfolio. Okay, and we're going to break that down a little bit more today. The first thing you need to do when it comes to identifying your financial independence number is you need to identify your version of retirement. Are you going to be the type of person who is traveling all the time? Are you going to be sitting in a rocking chair, hanging out with your family? Right? There's no version of retirement that's wrong. The important part is that you identify what you want your retirement to look like and identifying the associated costs with that version of retirement. The next thing you want to do is estimate an annual dollar amount of what that retirement can look like. And then lastly, set a proposed time frame for when you want to have that money and for how long you think that money needs to last. Okay, does that make sense so far? We're gonna go through some examples though. Okay. If anybody has questions throughout the presentation, drop them in the chat. I'm happy to answer them. But now let's actually calculate our financial independence number. The calculator I'm going to go through today, I will give everybody access to. Kevin, you're making a face. Can you see the Excel sheet? Okay. I didn't know. Okay, sounds good. So this calculator is going to be provided to all of you so you can quickly and easily calculate your financial independence number. The great thing about this is if you've already established your monthly budget, it should be very easy for you to take an estimate of the monthly amount you want in retirement. Go back to the first presentation I provided. We talk about mandatory expenses versus extra expenses. And what you want to do is look at that mandatory dollar amount each month. And let's just say that mandatory is $5,000 a month. We know by the time you retire, you should no longer have any debt. You should have your mortgage paid off, but your medical expenses might be a little bit higher. Maybe you want to travel a little bit more. So really, although you're removing some things, you might be adding more things along the way. And so this estimate should be based off of what you want. So if right now you're living off of $5,000 a month with mandatory expenses, maybe you say, well, I want $8,000 a month when I actually retire. I want to make sure that I give myself a little bit of wiggle room. A quick sidebar, as we talk about retirement, I get this question often with any type of intrapreneur or entrepreneur who says, well, I always want to work. I love working. Same here. That's okay. But the idea here is to make sure that you can give yourself the option to slow down on working. That's why it's important to start looking at this number today. Okay. So back to the example. You want $8,000 a month in retirement. Social Security income could cover a portion of that dollar amount. Now, for clients that I work with who are less than 55 years of age, I take a very different approach than with those who are over 55, because normally if they're over 55, they're starting to consider retiring within the next 5 to 10 years. As long as I've been in the industry, and even before then, I've heard many people say Social Security income is going to run out. Is it? I don't really know. I can't give you the answer. No one really can. However, if you want to see what you can expect to earn in Social Security income by the time you retire, you can go to this website, ssa.gov. You can create a free profile. It's based off of your information, your Social Security number and all of that. And it will compute an estimated dollar amount that you can expect to collect in retirement based off of a variety of different ages. So the longer you wait to start collecting the money from Social Security, the more that you can expect to receive. Now, one thing I want you to be aware of if you do go to this website, it does not have the capability to forecast additional contributions being set aside into your personal Social Security income bucket. So if you're 35 right now and you go in here, your number that they give you is going to be far less than if you were to go through and estimate this 20 years from now. Okay, so I want you to take this number with a grain of salt. With that said, anytime I've worked with a client who is approaching retirement or maybe, starting to retire, I've seen them collect anywhere between $1,300 to $1,700 a month. So if we take the average of that, that's $1,500. So out of the $8,000 a month that you want for retirement, if $1,500 is being covered by Social Security income, that means you need to be responsible for the remaining $6,500 a month or $78,000 a year. Of course, there's always the super conservative approach to this estimate, which many of my clients actually take. And they say, you know what, I'm not going to count on Social Security income at all. If I get it, great, that's gravy on top, but I want to push myself to earn that $8,000 a month based off of my own contributions. Another approach that I see with realtors is that many of them do have rental income properties. And if they know that they're going to be collecting $2,500 a month profit across their properties in their version of retirement, then you know that $5,500 a month needs to be covered by other types of investments, like in the stock market. Okay, so you can play around with this however you want. I'm going to keep it as a 0 for here right now. Now that I've understood that I want $96,000 a month from my total portfolio, the next thing I need to do is estimate how many years I think I might be in retirement. We got to start with the morbid part first. I'm sorry. The question I always ask is, at what age do you think you're going to expire, right? The average age for the female is 81. I believe for male, it's 76, if I'm not mistaken. However, when it comes to talking about this, I say look at your family history. I come from a long line of strong Italian women who live to be well into their 90s. So for me, if I say 95 and I want to retire at the age of, I'm just going to say 70. That's not what I actually want, but I'm going to keep the math simple today. That's 25 years in retirement. That's 25 years of giving myself nearly $100,000 a year that I want to cover. Be conservative with this approach and be honest with yourself. Do you want to retire at 70? Do you want to retire at 45? It doesn't matter what your response is. What matters is the fact that you're being honest with yourself and you're coming to this conclusion with a rationale behind it. So $8,000 a month for 25 years is the equivalent of $2.4 million. Now, we talked about the 4% rule. Remember, I said earlier, $1 million is the equivalent of $40,000 a year. So if I happen to stumble upon $2.4 million 10 years from now, if I know I can keep my expenses within 4% a year or $96,000 a year, I can retire 10 years from now rather than 40 years from now. That's why retirement is a dollar amount, not an age. If this money was contributed pre-tax, a good estimate is to withhold 25% in retirement, meaning $72,000 would be money that would actually hit my account that I could use. Okay, and if anybody has questions on that, write them down. We can get to that at the end. So current age, let's say I'm 30 and I want to retire at 70, right? You want to put your current age, you want to put the age that you want to retire. That means I have 480 months until I retire, or 480 monthly contributions to set money aside. Some of you might think that's awesome, right? That's great, so much time. Correct. However, if I were to wait another 10 years, it would cost me 3 times as much in my contributions to get to the same $2.4 million. And I'll show you an example of that. That's because I have time on my side. The sooner you start putting money aside for your investments, the more time you have for your initial contribution plus any interest earned to all gain additional interest. Now, let's talk about the interest rate assumed. If you have a financial advisor, I would encourage you to sit down and speak with them and see what your average rate of return should be based off of your risk tolerance. Every portfolio should look different. Kevin's investments are going to look very different from my investments because I may be riskier. I may be more conservative, right? Let's talk a little bit about the stock market. The S&P 500, for those of you who don't know, is one of the market indices that tracks the overall health of the stock market. It's 500 of some of the most popular, largest companies in the US, 500 of them. Since inception of this index and the tracking of these 500 companies, the S&P 500 has averaged 10% rate of return year over year. What does that mean? Well, let's look at the past 100 years or so and everything that's happened. The Great Depression, the 2001 tech bubble burst, the 2008 market crash, COVID, inflation, whatever the hell's going on right now, right? All of these different things that are going on in the stock market and these significant dips in the stock market, and yet it has still averaged 10% rate of return. So when it comes time to estimate what you might earn on your investment portfolio, 10% is a good number to start with. You can then ask yourself on a scale of 1 to 10, how risky am I? And if you say you're a 7, I would estimate 7% rate of return. If you say you're a 5, estimate 5% rate of return. And again, this is more of a let's just get this started conversation. If I were you, I would not stop here. I would talk with a financial advisor to actually go through a questionnaire to get a solid answer on what your interest rate should be based off of your aversion to risk. For me, I'm very risky in my investments. However, for the example today, I'm just going to estimate a 7% rate of return. And then the last thing you want to do is put how much money you already have set aside for retirement. If you have nothing, put 0. If you have $5,000, put $5,000. Okay? This is what you already have set aside. Now that you've identified your financial independence number and you've gone through some of the information gathering to help you figure out how to get to this number, let's actually do some math, okay? Let's go through a couple examples. So at the bottom of this Excel sheet, I have a link here for an online financial calculator. And if you're not familiar with one, that's okay. You don't need to be an expert. I'm going to show you exactly what you need. Can we have a copy of this Excel sheet? Absolutely, Audrey. Yes, I will be sending it to everybody. I'm going to show you the basics of what you need for this online calculator. You don't need to be an expert. And if you feel like you're struggling with this component at the, after this presentation, you can text me. I'm happy to help you calculate your number directly. So there's 5 different components at the top. And these are the 5 different pieces that you can calculate for in any financial scenario. I want to focus on the PMT tab today, or payment. The next thing I want to do is update the settings. We're talking about contributing once a month, every month for the rest of, well, not the rest of our lives, but until we retire, right? So we're going to change that to 12 because there's 12 months a year. The next thing we want to do is update the number of periods or the number of times we are going to be contributing. In this case, for me, mine was 480. I got that number right here. Interest rate per year, I'm estimating 7. The present value, that's the current amount that I already have set aside, $5,000. What you want to do is put a negative 5,000. Why is the negative important? Well, with the financial calculator, the numbers need to be different between present value versus future value, negative versus positive. Because if it's not, then it doesn't give you the calculation, it breaks, okay? I like putting the negative in front of the present value because I always remember that that's money that's already come out of my pocket and kind of waiting in limbo until I'm ready to capture it again. Okay, so negative $5,000. And then the future value is that financial independence number that I want, that 2.4 million. So let's go right here. I have all of my factors in here. I'm going to click calculate. So if I'm 30, I want to retire at 70. I earn 7% rate of return. I already have $5,000 set aside. My goal is to get 2.4 million. That means I need to contribute $940 a month, every month from now until the age of 70. Okay. I'm going to give everybody just a second to kind of capture this. Now, earlier I said, for every 10 years you wait to start investing, it costs you 3 times as much to get to the same end result. In this case, the same 2.4 million. So let's just change this to 360 payments. $2,000 a month, every month. That's a little bit more stressful, right? Now, let's just say for argument's sake, I do have 30 years. I'm going to mess around with the interest rate a little bit. If I put 5%, it's going to take $2,900 a month. Why? Because my money's not working as much for me. I need to do a little bit more of that heavy lifting because I'm a little bit more averse to risk, and that's okay. For somebody who is pretty risky, you can put 10%. You see how it costs a lot less? Now, it's costing a lot less in terms of the dollar amount, but it might not cost less on the risk amount. Maybe it's a little bit more stressful for you. When it comes to looking at your investment portfolio, whether it's retirement or non-retirement, a good gut check for you to keep in mind when it comes to looking at your interest rate and the fluctuations in your account is, if I see a dip, is this a disappointment or a devastation? I'm going to repeat that. When your investments dip, are you disappointed or devastated? If you're devastated, you're exposed to too much risk. You need to rebalance your investments into some safer vehicles to make sure that you only ever feel disappointed. Disappointment is natural, okay? Devastation means you're not in line with your financial goals and your personality. Regardless of what number you have here, okay? In this case, let's just talk about Roundup, $1,200. We've identified our monthly contribution amount, or what we need to set aside. You then get to take that $1,200 a month, or whatever it looks like in your business, and you get to embed that into your budget, okay? Sylvia, I'll answer your question in just a second, or your statement. You need to embed that into your budget, all right? And we talked about budgeting in that first presentation, and that comes with the budget tool as well. Now, at the beginning of this presentation, I also mentioned I like showing you what you need and taking those steps, but I also like giving you the solution on how to cover that. Some of you might have numbers that are $5,000 a month. Hell, I had a client a couple months ago whose number was $12,000 a month. That's a hefty sum. And if you see a dollar amount that's a lot bigger than you were expecting, there's a few different things you can do. You can extend your timeline for when you want to have that money by. You can rework your expectations of what you want retirement to look like. And or you can make a lot more money now because your income's not capped, and you can get to that dollar amount and set it aside. So the question I always like to approach first is, how much more do you need to sell to cover what you need to set aside for retirement? In this example, $1,200. How many more houses do you need to sell each month? At what price point? How many people do you need to talk to get to that one sale, right? What's your closing rate on clients? It all boils down to you being able to do what you're already good at, which is real estate. Now you just get to be a little bit more strategic in how you get those clients, because now you have a dollar amount that you're working towards. Sylvia said you don't look at your investments every month. For those of you who maybe feel a little overwhelmed with looking at bank statements, credit card statements, investments, whatever it may be, I'll share with you what I shared last week, which was, if you only ever want to look at your financial information when it's good, you're never going to look at your financial information. You won't. And I'm sorry to say that, but you have to look at it when it's not as good in order to get it to the point of where you want it to be good. You got to work through that feeling of uncomfortableness in order to get there. I am the epitome of working through that feeling. I did not go from $1.50 8 years ago to where I am today by never looking at my numbers. I look at them weekly, religiously. And it's not always good news or what I want to see. But that allows me to be more strategic and be better at how I manage not only my personal finances, but my business finances as well. Also, chances are, Sylvia, it's always worse in our head than it actually is. We spin it out of proportion. So now that you know how much more you need to sell in order to cover that monthly contribution, where do you actually send that money, right? What do you do with it? Where do you put it? There's quite a few different options. You can have a 401k, a traditional IRA, a Roth IRA, simple, SEP, and Keogh. I mean, and these are just the basics and scratching the surface, okay? A 401k is a retirement plan that is employer sponsored, meaning your employer where you work must already offer a 401k for you to contribute money to consistently. The maximum amount that you can contribute each year right now is $20,500. So if you have a dollar amount that's greater than that you need to set aside, and you have a 401k available to you, take advantage of the 401k, but then know that you might need to open up another account as well. Normally, when you contribute to a 401k, the contributions are pre-tax, meaning you get the tax break today, which allows you to lower your tax liability right now. But when you go to withdraw that money in the future, you pay taxes on the contributions and the interest earned. So remember, on that financial independence calculator, we looked at that 4% withdrawal of $96,000 a year versus $72,000 a year because we estimated some pre-tax versus after-tax. That's why it's important to know what you're investing in. Because are you getting the $96,000 pre or after tax? Some 401ks do offer an after-tax option, also considered a Roth 401k, but that just depends on the employer and who they're partnered with that 401k. Being realtors and assuming that most of you are 1099 and maybe getting paid to your LLC, you might not have access to a 401k, and that's all right. You do have a couple other options. So let's talk about the traditional IRA. An IRA, all that stands for is individual retirement account, meaning it's a retirement account that you get to own on your own. You don't have to have an employer offer it to you. It's individually sponsored. Okay. Not anybody can just go out and open up a 401k. The maximum contribution per year in this type of account is $6,000. So again, $1,200 in my example might get me halfway through the year, but that then means I need to find another account to then contribute more. A traditional IRA is tax deferred, meaning it's pre-tax. You get the tax break today, just with the 401k, but you pay taxes on the contributions and interest in the future. A Roth IRA, on the other hand, is still an individual retirement account. It's still $6,000 a year, but you contribute after tax dollars. So you don't get that tax break today. You do pay taxes on it, but when you go to withdraw that money in the future, you don't pay any taxes on the contributions or the interest. This is a fantastic loophole when it comes to investments and taxes. A typical brokerage account, you invest your money on an after-tax basis, meaning you do pay taxes today, but when you withdraw that money in the future, you pay taxes on your capital gains. With the Roth IRA, you don't. Some people often ask me, can I have a traditional and a Roth IRA? Yes, but the total maximum contribution across both accounts is $6,000. So you can't do 6 and 6. It's 6 total. So that's something to keep in mind. Now, let's say that you are in a scenario where you don't have access to a 401k and a traditional and or Roth IRA just don't allow you to contribute as much as you want. There are a lot of different retirement plans out there for those of you who own a business. Okay, maybe you get paid to your business to open up and save a little bit more. There's a simple IRA, SEP IRA, and Keogh plan. All of them have different pros and cons, and I'm not going to go into each of them right now because it really is a case-by-case scenario, right? That's something that you want to sit down with your financial advisor and maybe your CPA and identify the best plan for you. Because if you have an employee, that completely changes which plan might be best for you and in your best interest. But know that you do have plenty of options out there. And if you don't have a good financial advisor or a good CPA, please let me know. I'm very happy to introduce you to the right person to help you open up that account and manage those investments so that way you can reach your financial independence number in a timely manner. One thing I want to mention, a lot of people think that when they send their money to a Roth IRA or traditional IRA, that money is getting automatically invested. A Roth IRA, traditional IRA, those aren't investments. Those are just the accounts. Okay. That's like saying, I'm going to send money to my savings account and it's going to get invested. It just sits there, right? So when you send money to your retirement accounts, unless you have a 401k that automatically does this for you, it's going to sit in what's called a cash sweep account. In other words, a savings account, until you actually log in and you place a trade. You buy something with that money. So my encouragement to you all today is, if you are the type of person who is worried about opening their own retirement account, there's a couple different things you can do. Number one, if you open it on your own, set up those transfers from your typical account to your retirement account. And as you let that money grow, do some more research on what you want to invest that money in. You don't need to figure out all the answers right away. Simply setting that money aside is a good muscle to exercise, and at least that money is getting put to use away from being spent. The other option is you don't have to open the account on your own. You can open up a Roth IRA, a traditional IRA, any of the other ones I mentioned with somebody who manages those assets for you. Yes, you can open many of them on your own, but if that's not your zone of genius, you don't have to make it your zone of genius. Let somebody else do that work for you. When it comes to actually investing your money, you want to make sure that it aligns with your risk tolerance. And that's where we talked about that disappointment versus devastation earlier. And you want to make sure that it aligns with your goals. So what are your financial goals? There are a lot of different types of index funds and mutual funds that are diversified to help you get a well-rounded approach to your investment strategy. Investment strategy isn't our main topic of conversation today, but if you have specific questions, let me know. I'm happy to share additional resources with you. I wanted to make sure that you all walked away with at least knowing your end goal and the basics on how to get there with retirement. For those of you looking for additional help, everybody that's registered is going to get access to my budget setting tool, the retirement planning tool we talked about, as well as I'm going to send that link from that first presentation if you want a little bit of extra help on filling out that budget setting tool. As always, though, I'm a geek. I love finance. So if you have any questions, let me know and I'm happy to walk you through it. You can schedule a free call with me or anybody else that is a financial coach with my team. We're happy to walk you through anything and make sure that you feel confident rather than confused. If you'd like to reach out to me or get more free resources, I have my website, millsknowsbills.com. You can email me directly, follow me on your favorite social platforms. I'm out there, okay? I'm now going to open it up for questions. And of course, Kevin, if you'd like to jump in, you're more than welcome to do so. And I do see some people in the chat. Gustavo would like a financial advisor. Perfect. Awesome. Okay, so what I'm going to say is email me if you want an introduction to a financial advisor, because I'll just CC you on an email with a few different great people that I think you should reach out to. I'm not the type of person to say, hey, this is the one best person out there, because this is somebody who's going to be managing your assets for a very long time. You want to make sure you know, like, and trust them. So what I'll do is actually introduce you to quite a few individuals, and I want you to interview them, essentially. See who you like the most and go with whoever you get along with the best. So Gustavo, I'll keep an eye out for your email. And I'll type that in here for you to copy and paste. Okay. All right, Nadia asked, not all of us are 30 years old and have 40 years left to retire. Do you recommend we start with the IRAs and 401ks? That's a really, really good question. The first thing I would do is go through that retirement calculator and then go through the financial calculator. So see how much you want in total and see how much you need to contribute monthly. That will help you narrow down what type of retirement account to open if you don't have one yet at all. Also, I would say is don't wait for perfection. It doesn't hurt for you to have a Roth IRA over here and then open up a simple IRA in the future. The point is that you're getting started no matter how imperfectly, because any type of progress is going to help you get closer. Once you have those two things filled out, send me an email and I can help put you in contact with the right person to make sure that you're capitalizing on the most with that money. What about a fixed index annuity? What about it? There's nothing wrong with it. I like most types of investments out there, as long as you feel like you're being diversified and that gets you what you want with your financial goals, go for it. Any other questions? Also, Al, you can normally annuitize any type of retirement account. It's a conversion, and a good financial advisor could help you with that. Anything else? Okay. Well, if anybody has additional questions, again, you can email me. So Peter, there's actually not a set typical age for Social Security. There's a few different ages in general. So like I said earlier, the longer you wait to withdraw that money, the more money you will get from Social Security income. When you log in and create that profile with ssa.gov, you can see what your specific amount might look like based off of those different ages. Is Bitcoin an alternative for an investment? Okay, I get asked this question in all sorts of fashions all the time. Cryptocurrencies in general, and any type of investment in general, should never be your end all be all. Okay, let me explain that. I love Tesla. Okay, that doesn't mean I'm going to put all my money in Tesla, because then that means my portfolio and my investments are directly tied to however Tesla performs. If Tesla breaks, my money breaks. Okay, same thing with Bitcoin. If you are the type of person who loves Bitcoin or other types of cryptocurrencies, go for it. But don't put all of your eggs in one basket. Instead, have 10 eggs in the basket, because as some might go up in value, others might go down. And that way your account is not tied to just one thing in and of itself. That's why if you're just getting started with investing and you want to invest in the stock market, the S&P 500 is a great place to start. It's a lazy way to start because you don't need to day trade. What do I mean by that? Well, you can buy SPY, SPY, which is the ticker symbol for that market index. So rather than buying one company, you're buying pieces of all 500 that are tracked in the S&P 500. So you're tracking the general market as it transitions. So not all of your eggs are in one basket. So if you walk away with one thing today, is make sure your investments are diversified. Because if you have everything in one type of vehicle, it might not work out for you. It might, but it might not. Very good question, though, Gustavo. Anybody else? Yes, Alex, great question. So I'm a financial coach. I like to say I'm step one in somebody's financial journey. I empower through education. I help with all of the information gathering, and then I tie that financial strategy or financial plan with a business strategy. So rather than saying, Alex, hey, based off of your goals, you need to generate $250K a year, instead I say you need to close 2 new clients a month. And this is how you get there. And this is why we came up with $250K a year. I personally don't love the asset management side of finances. I previously worked as a financial advisor, and that's just not what gets me up in the morning, right? So I know about the information, but I'm not sitting there opening other people's accounts and managing those investments for them. However, being a financial advisor and working as a financial coach to this day, I know what makes a good advisor. And so I've gathered quite a few in my network who I would recommend. So that way you can get that in-depth review of your assets, your investment strategy, risk tolerance, all of that. What books or podcasts do you recommend for learning more about the type of IRA account we should create? I don't know if I'd say I've read or listened to something that is just on a type of IRA. What I will say is, for anybody who is, business mindset, meaning they manage their own book of business and they have that variable income, two of my favorite books that I've read, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. If you have not read it, it completely changes your perspective on how money works in general and why being a realtor and sending your revenue through a business is actually in your benefit. And then the second one is Profit First. So that talks about how to manage your finances in a way that allows you to continually profit and not just bleed cash. If you want more recommendations, I know I have them, but I can't think of them at the top of my mind. Can you invest in SPY from your IRA or Roth IRA account? Yes, Alejandro, you can. Alex would love to speak with you. Please send me an email. Any other questions? These are really good questions, everybody. Okay. Well, then one last time, I'll put my email in the chat here. I would like to find info about fixed index annuity. Okay, send me an email. I'll put you in contact with the right person for that then, for sure. If anybody thinks of anything, or maybe you're just too shy to ask here, that's completely fine. I get it. What do you think about investing in real estate through your IRA? I think if it works for you, go for it. As long as you're not over leveraged and you're not tapped out on your risk, go for it. See, it's not a one size fits all. And I want y'all to understand that. Like, what works for me might not work for you, and vice versa. All right. Then Kevin, I want to make sure you have those 5 minutes to wrap up and do what you got to do. If anybody thinks of anything, I think I've made it abundantly clear. Reach out to me. I'm not going to bite your head off. Like I said, this brings me joy, so I hope I can help you get some joy out of it as well. Thank you, everybody, for allowing me to share some time with you this afternoon, and I hope you have a great day.
Everybody, thank you so much for attending today. I'm going to post the link for the information for the hotel and reservation for the YPN Global Congress in Dubai. We really hope to see you there. And since Mills is talking about how to save, you can start saving now for that Congress. We'd love to see you there. There's a lot of great real estate professionals from all over the world that we want you to meet, we want you to collaborate with, and potentially do business together, which could bring even more money for your savings later on. And with that, we thank you so much for attending today. We have another class in 2 weeks. This will be all about lead follow-up. So we all know that just because a lead comes in doesn't mean they're necessarily ready right away. And we'll be sharing some of the best practices for you to be sure to make sure, so that you are sure that they choose you as their realtor and you're able to close the deal with them. So with that, everybody go out there, be great, and we'll see you in class in about 2 weeks. Thank you so much for stopping by.